Okay, so maybe about a fourth of the people online anyways. And I can't see in the room, but okay, so that's good. Um, so let me start. I want it to be mostly the sort of demo. We're just gonna go and sort of poke around. But I'll start with a couple little slides here. So if you're not familiar, um, Jupyter, I think, is a reference to probably many things, but it really started out as these notebooks that are available via something called Jupyter Hub. Jupyter is a project, so it's something that's developed by a lot of different people, scientists, software developers, so forth. And it's all open source, I believe, right? Um, so in the beginning, I think it was mostly used for Python, for using Python, interpreting Python. And so that's kind of why there's the PY, but it extends beyond Python now. I still think of it mostly as like a Python tool, but that's really not true or accurate because it can do a lot more. That's just how I often used it. Um, you can do all kinds of things in a Jupyter notebook. If you haven't used them before, they're just incredible tool for live coding. I feel like I wouldn't even know how to develop code anymore without a Jupyter notebook because I'm always wanting to iteratively, write stuff and I'm sort of computing it or, s- seeing what it does almost every time I write a line of code. I like, what did it do? So live coding, basically very interactive, like constantly being able to like debug what you're doing. You can do really beautiful equation. You can use tech like LaTeX, so you can write out your equations, and then you can actually, write the code to evaluate those equations. You can do visualizations. Over here is a really nice little screenshot of all of these things. So there's a notebook up here that has some really nice equations written out, and then there's the code here that is actually running the solver. The solver is written in another function file over here, and then there's a little visualization that's shown here, and it's interactive, which is cool. So you can do interactive widgets. So all of these things that it can do are actually shown over here. And that's just the notebook aspect. And then so you can use the notebooks for a million different things. Just imagine anything that, like I said, I would use it like if I'm opening up a new data, someone gave me some raw data or something. I'm doing all my data exploration, cleaning, any analysis, modeling, visualization, and then the machine learning. It's all pretty much happening in that notebook. I find them to be very powerful, and they don't just have to be Python. You'll find that these notebooks can be in other. You can do R notebooks as well, and Julia, I believe. So, um, so now I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and go to the live demo. And these slides are here as a reference to you to go back through if you need to figure out, what some of these things mean. So, okay, so I'm here at the login page. So actually, let me go back to Jupyter. Okay. So this is what it'll look like when you get here. And let me zoom in a little bit. Okay, so you'll go there by going to jupyter.ners.gov, and then you're gonna sign in with federated ID. I am signing in with NERSC. My credentials are here, and then you will have to use your MFA one-time password. You always have to do that when logging in at NERSC. So let me put in my one-time password here, and there we go. Okay, so let me actually go that much. So now what you're shown here, this is kind of like a hub control panel type of thing. Or I think it's sometimes called control hub or something like that, something along those lines. And you see a bunch of different options here. So the only compute resource we have right now is Perlmutter. In the past, when we had multiple resources, there was basically two lines because you could either be using Perlmutter or you could be using the previous system, which was Cori. So there might be a time when Perlmutter and Doudna are available at the same time. So you might see two rows here, which is Perlmutter and then Doudna. And then the columns are the different types of sessions that you can instantiate. So the first one, and the one that you might use the most, is a login node. So this is the same as SSHing into Perlmutter from the terminal. You land on a login node. So your Jupyter session is going to be running on a login node. So just as a reminder, while there's this like GUI aspect of Jupyter that runs in your browser, it's really a job that's running on Perlmutter. It's like what Charles has been showing you. It's a interactive job that is requiring resources. So on the back end of this button is actually a job script that's being submitted on your behalf, and then it takes a minute to, or 30 seconds or 20 seconds or 5 seconds to get those resources and make them available to you. The reason it's pretty fast, uh, depending on which one of these buttons we pick, is because there is a Jupyter QoS, which you don't have access to unless you're accessing it through Jupyter, the Jupyter Hub, that has a very high priority because we know that people are going to be using it kind of interactively while they're, and you can't, as far as I know, get like tons and tons of nodes. I'm not sure what the limit is of how many nodes you can get, but it's probably not that many. Um, and so the options here are similar to the types of options that you might ask for while doing an interactive session. So login node is pretty basic. You just get in there and you do a little bit of basic work. Shared GPU node is exactly what it sounds like. So you land on a GPU node, but you're going to get one of the GPUs. Exclusive CPU node is, again, you just get your own node and you can get a CPU node or a GPU node. So remember, CPU nodes is two CPUs, GPU node is one CPU and four GPUs. So if you have a code that you know can run on multiple GPUs, it's set up to do that, or you're trying to write something to be able to set up to be able to work on multiple GPUs, you may want to get one of these exclusive nodes so that you can try your code running on multiple GPUs. And then there's a configurable job which actually allows you to configure exactly what you want, which means you could get some more nodes, you can set up the time, and this is for if you have a reservation. So if you're part of like a training event or some other, your project has requested some reserved time, you can use the configurable job here. Let me click on this um, to specify that you're part of a reservation. And so you will be able to get, and actually the nice thing is it has maxes here. So you can only get four nodes. You can't get more than that. Uh, and you can, change this as necessary for whatever it is you're trying to ask for. Okay. But remember, if you change some of these things, just like if you submit a job script that is asking for more resources or kind of an interesting subset of resources, the time it takes to instantiate may be a bit longer. So let's, and just in case you forget, now there's this really fantastic, these two lines here that essentially ask or explain what it is that you're clicking on here. So when I click on start, it's actually, because it's a kind of the standard thing, it's just gone ahead and submitted that job request for me. And I'm now just waiting for the job to give me my node or get me on a login node. It's not an exclusive node. Okay, so now I'm on a Perlmutter login node right here. I'm on login node 34. And I'm going to change this because I always have it in the dark mode, but I need to have it in light mode, I think makes it easier. And you'll see actually for mine, it's opened up a terminal. So this is basically equivalent to SSH, right? You land and you hit you're in the terminal environment on a login node. So everything that I would do in a terminal, I can CD to scratch. I can do it here in this terminal in the browser. The other really nice thing though is that there is a lot of sort of clickability, right? I can quickly navigate to certain uh, file folders by using basically a file browser on the side. So if you're more familiar with that, if you're more comfortable with that, you can do that. Um, And I have a couple favorites saved up here as well. So if I want to quickly get to my Scratch folder, my home folder, I can click on those things. The file browser has some more convenient buttons. I can make a new folder. So, I can do all of those things. Let's see, where am I right now? I'm in Scratch. So note that changing folders over here doesn't change anything over here in my terminal. So it's not like I can navigate necessarily. But if you are not sure, let's say I'm a little confused about where, let me see, let's go to Scratch and I'll go somewhere in here. Okay, this is a project that, yeah, there's nothing in here. Hold on. Um, oh, there's nothing in any of these. Oh, it's because it's probably been purged. Let me go in here. Okay, so let's say I need to figure out like where are these? I can actually, so and it depends on, what kind of maybe operating system you're using or whatever, but I have a right click option that will show me a bunch of different things. Like I can rename this easily, I can delete it, but it can also show me my path, right? So let's say I need to, I've navigated to this folder in the file browser over here, but I need to get there in my terminal because I need to move something or copy something or whatever I want to do, right? I can copy the path and then I can do CD, which is the command, which is how on the command line you change directory. And then I can actually copy paste and it wants, oh yeah, I remember it wants that. Okay. So the thing that it was missing actually, unfortunately, was that initial little slash there. So what I did was, let me clear this. Let me go back to my home directory. Okay, so right now I'm in my home directory and I need to get to whatever this directory is here. I'm going to do CD. The funny thing, so if I do CD and I just paste the thing I copied from here, you'll see it says no such file or directory. Obviously, that's not the case. It's because this copy doesn't include that initial slash there. So just have to add that. And now I am in the folder that I was trying to get to. Okay. So and now I can do whatever I need to do in here. Okay. And you can do things like, if I want to open one of these, let's see if I can get myself out there. Dot out or whatever, right? I can actually I'm using VI now in the terminal, right? Or if I don't want to do that, if I don't want to use VI and I want to be able to edit this a little bit easier, I can come in here and I can, let me open this up a little bit more. I can actually double click on one of these and now it's opened it up as like a text file and I can do whatever editing I need to do in here. Okay. So this is meant to be a little bit more, depending on what your experience is with using SSH or using a terminal. While I think it's good to have that experience, and understand how to use a terminal. If you're in a place where you're like, okay, I just need to get this work done, or what I'm in the process of learning, but in the meantime, I'd like to be running some jobs, you can always come into Jupyter and you can be using the sort of the point and click and the sort of GUI features that make things a little bit more potentially make things easier if depending on your experience. Okay. Um, and then let's see, what else do I want to show you in here? Okay, so let's say I am doing something. Let's say I have a notebook open. Let's see if there's anything in these notebooks. Um, this is from, I had a master's student 2 years ago who did a project with me. So this is all of her work. So let's say I'm running something, and this is one of the beautiful plots that we've made with our data, but this is also a lot of data. So sometimes if you're doing something silly and you are running a Jupyter notebook and oops, um, wow, this is a huge plot. Sorry, I was trying to make it a little easier to look at. And it gets stuck. Like something is wrong, something isn't working. There is this button over here, and this looks like if you if you have ever used like a CD player or a cassette player or something like that, I don't know if people know this, but the square is actually the stop button, which Again, I'm not sure if any of you know this, but that's what this is over here. So actually what this shows is it shows everything that I'm running right now. It shows the kernel. So the kernel is the thing that actually does the work behind the notebook. So it shows all my running kernels. If I need to restart a kernel, um, I can do that here. You can also do that in here. You can restart the kernel. And I can explain in a moment what that means. But let's say I need to, my Jupyter notebook is I've done something wrong. I know it's gonna cause a problem. I can literally come in here and I can force quit, right? I'm going to discard it because I've made some changes and it was bad. So I can that is a thing you can do when you know that you need to basically cancel some process that's running. Um, you could do that just, but if the process is there's no issue. You can just close the window itself. But if something is running and you close this, it will still be, usually the kernel will still be running. So sometimes this doesn't actually kill the process, it just closes the tab. And that's why having this tab is really important because then you know, oh, did I actually kill the process or did I just close the tab? And that means it's still running, right? Because you might want to actually be stopping that process. There's this really cool dashboard here, which is what if you're running, let's see. So I don't have any examples right now that I can pull up of a little notebook or something that it's trying to access a GPU. But you could come here and you can open one of these and it'll show you is the GPU being used, right? This is, I feel like, a very typical, like, I've written my code and, nominally it should be using the GPU, but like, is it really? Like, is it really using the GPU? And so this is a place where you can come and you can very easily see, is my machine learning actually using the GPU? And you can see this. So this is a login node. It does have one GPU on it, I believe. And apparently someone or something is maybe using it. Let's see, there should be, yeah, total utilization. Maybe this is just nominal though. I don't know. Maybe it's always at about 50%. That seems weird. I don't know. Anyways, but these are amazing, and this didn't exist actually back when I was first using the Jupyter at NERSC. So they've added all of this recently, and I think that's awesome. This is let's see, this is a Dask dashboard. So if you have used Dask, it's for parallel processes, and I think. I'm not sure how this one works, but we do have documentation on using Dask. And maybe it would show you some information here. And then this is if you have if you're using a GitHub repository. And so I think there is some extension here that will make it easy. You can sort of point and click in order to make a new repository and so forth. I haven't actually used any of these tools though. So um, I highly recommend using them and trying them out. You're not going to do anything. You're not going to break anything. Okay. So another thing I want to show you is this launcher. So the cool thing about this is, and let's see, I can go home. Okay, and you can see actually this launcher has changed now. So so I went back into my home directory. So if I try to open any of these notebooks, and what these various notebooks are showing is different kernels, right? So you'll see here a lot of these. So these are actually different Conda environments that I've made. And so this notebook will then launch in that with that Conda environment. Okay. Let's see, select a kernel. So the kernel, oh, I think it changed. It started with this one, this my env. That's like one of my basic Conda environments. But I could change it. Let's say I'm like, oh, actually, you know what? I want to be using a specific TensorFlow, or actually, I need to use one of these Julia kernels or something. You can come up here and you can actually change it here. Okay. So that's actually a really cool, these are all from user trainings, discard. Okay. And you can see here, there's a bunch of these notebooks. Console, this is like an interactive environment. So this is going to be like, kind of like if you're running I think this is like IPython notebook when it was or IPython. This is when it runs like in the terminal. So this is also something I haven't used a lot, but it's similar to a notebook, except it doesn't have the same amount of like you can go back and change things, that kind of thing. And let's see here, is it still running? Okay, so that's, I think that's one of the things I was saying, like just because I closed that console doesn't necessarily mean that the kernel closed. So let's see. Let's see if this one goes away. It may not, which means that this is still running. And then we also have down here really nice little things like if you need to pull up a terminal, if you want to make a quick text file, this is a Python file. So all of these things are quickly accessible to you. This is a markdown file. You can basically initialize one of these and it will show up with some amount of, it knows what kind of file you're writing. So it might have some useful coloring and so forth. Okay, so I think this is still running. So this is one of those scenarios I was talking about where I closed the tab, but it didn't and the actual process. So I'm going to actually say shut down all. But I think there also I could have just pressed the X button and that just shuts down. Okay, so let's see here. Is there anything else I wanted to talk about? Okay, so remember, so kernels are the thing that are actually running in the background. So let me go down to here. Okay, so you have your notebook file. It's running on a Jupyter server that you see in the browser, and this is you over here. The kernel is what's running your notebook. And there was a bunch of those defaults and the things that we make available to you, but you can bring in your own kernel as well. So what that means is when I made a Jupyter environment, or sorry, a Conda environment for myself, and I want that to be available to me in one of my notebooks, I need to tell Jupyter to go and get that kernel. And so we have really, really good instructions on how to do that. I'm not gonna read them to you because you're just gonna go and copy them. You're gonna copy line by line this exact code, and that creates this kernel spec file, which then makes it available in that drop-down list to you. So when you make your Conda environment, afterwards, if you want it available for your notebooks, you're gonna go right here to these instructions, and that's exactly how that will be done. Okay, I'm not totally sure that I want to show that. So just for reference, and this has not been updated since beginning of last year. So I should ask Kelly for an updated version of this. But Jupyter usage is extremely popular at NERSC. Personally, I basically never SSH into Perlmutter unless I'm showing someone how to do it, probably, because I love the interactivity and how easy it is to use Jupyter. I have my terminal, I have my notebooks, I have anything I need is like, I can click on it, I can do it in, it just, I don't know. For me, it's just really, really simple. I think, some people like a terminal because that's what they're used to. I was sort of brought up in the HPC world in Jupyter, so that's what I'm used to. So don't feel like, oh, I have to be using a terminal or I have to be, use what makes you the most efficient, use what makes you feel comfortable, use what works for you. Okay, so if you like Jupyter, use it. If you don't like it, don't use it. There's no problem. It's just one more way to use our system. Okay. Now at the end, so these jobs I think last for about 4 hours. But if you're done, and I was very bad about this, so I'm glad Helen kind of asked us to show how to do this because I was always like, whatever, it'll end, the job will end, it's fine. But really, what you should do is once you're done, let's say I'm done for the day, I've done my work, I'm ready to go. I will come down here in File and go to the Hub Control Panel. So you remember this, right? And now you see there's another button here because my server is running. So one thing that's really nice is if I accidentally closed my tabs, well, how do I get back to it? Well, jupyter.nurse.gov, and I can click on server and it'll bring me right back to my server. And what I'll show you is, okay, so this is running. So let's have it. So this is running. Remember, this console is running here, right? And I close my tab, right? Let's go back. Let's go back to the server and it's still running. Okay. So just because you close the tab doesn't mean that your process has ended. Okay. And anything that you're running there will still be running. So so what that means is if you want it to stop, you have to be actively telling it to stop, which means I have to come in here and say shut down if I want my process to end. But also just if you close the tab, it's not like the end of the world. You just get back to it, right? And that's a really great thing here is you click on this server button and it takes you right back to where you were. But if you're done for the day, you want to press this stop button, and basically that's the equivalent of killing the job that's running, like the SALOC or whatever, right? You're basically relinquishing those resources back to the scheduler and saying I'm done, right? So yeah, I was probably super lazy about pressing stop, which is bad practice. I would just leave it until it ended on its own. But what you should do is come in here, just take 4 seconds to come here and press stop, and that'll just give those resources back. Okay. Um, I think that's pretty much it. Are there any questions? I don't have the Q&A open. Are there any quick questions? I see something. Can you submit a job using Jupyter Notebook asynchronously? I'm not sure what you mean by asynchronous. Like asynchronous to what? You can use Jupyter. You can use Jupyter to submit a job. So I could use a terminal in Jupyter. You could use Jupyter Notebook, like the REST API, to submit a job if that's what you're asking about. But then you need to have the API like tokens and so forth, which you can do, but you have to request that. So you can submit a job from a terminal within Jupyter. If you want to submit a job from a notebook, you would have to use the REST API, I believe, or I guess you could use the like exclamation mark S batch thing. Um, so yeah, I guess you can submit a job from a notebook. Yeah, you can do that. I guess I'm not totally sure what asynchronous means. Like you'd
Did they
have a
mean
notebook.
just like a S batch submission within the notebook or, but you can do that? 'Cause
You
I
can, yeah, you can submit an S batch job from a notebook. That would be fine. Um, I guess, are you saying like your notebook is like shooting off all these SBAT jobs for you? I guess technically you could do that too. You could write some kind of loop that does that for you, maybe. Um, let's see, is there someone saying no? Okay, no. Yeah, you can do an SBAT submission. Was someone asking me, did you back up the files from scratch? Is that someone was asking me that? I have in the past backed up my files from scratch, but I've also sometimes not, and things get purged. So sometimes I'm like, well, crap, I don't have that anymore. Luckily, I don't do any active research anymore right now, anyways, so I'm not at risk of losing anything that I really need. Yes, you can submit a batch job from a Jupyter notebook. Yep, you absolutely can do that. Mhm. Can I test a multi-node MPI-based code in Jupyter before submitting a job? Yes. Uh, I'm not sure if you can do it interactively. There is something called MPI for Pi. So if you're running like a Python notebook, you could do that, I think, maybe. But I'm going to leave that to the MPI experts. I don't know.
I'm leaning towards yes, but
Okay.
we will follow up appropriately.
Can modules be loaded in Jupyter? Yes. So this is when you're going to need to make a kernel for yourself. So there is a way to basically set up a kernel that has certain modules loaded. Yeah. And that is in the documentation. So when you go to, let me see if I can just look it up right now. Basically you'll create a custom Jupyter kernel, and then you'll load it into Jupyter. So let me see, Jupyter kernel. Doo. There's very, very, very good how-to guides. So let me put this here for a moment. Choop. So those are the how-to guides. So the Jupyter overview. I think it should be in here. Validate, how to set environment variables for Python kernel. Customize a kernel. Yes, you will write a helper script. That's right. So let me put this right here. Okay, there you go. So you're gonna write a little helper script, and that will help you load modules that you need. Um, yeah, great. Okay, so I am now going to switch us over to the last little thing, which is our little day 2 quiz, unless there's anything else. Okay, hopefully this will work. Oh, okay. I need to redo this one because if I remember correctly, it's got some kind of weird settings. So it's gonna think this is like a quiz and it's gonna like it's gonna show you questions on your phone. Oh, where's the QR code? Okay, let me copy this. Um, sorry, I think there should be I thought there was a QR code. But if you go to menti.com and you type in this code, you can do it on your phone as well. I got a question in the chat about installing extensions. You can't install your own extensions into Jupyter. That is not something that we allow yet. So we have extensions that we make available based on what we think people need or people use. But as far as I'm aware right now, you cannot install your own extensions. Okay. Give me a thumbs up if you are ready to go. I see 8 people. Anyone else joining us for our quiz? Oops, 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 oops. Okay, there was another question that was, if I have a folder saved locally on my laptop, how do I transfer that to the Jupyter environment? So this would be the same as moving data to NERSC. So you can't just take a flat folder necessarily and like plop it into Jupyter. There is an easy way to download from Jupyter onto your local machine. But as far as I know, actually, I don't know if there's an upload button. There might be like some kind of upload. Let me look on my other screen over here. So, yeah, you would have to do it the same way that you would move data. So you could do an SCP. You could use Globus. I, you could use like GitHub if you
Well,
had
actually,
moving.
you can enable the upload option under File Browser.
Oh, can you?